Let's talk about rank advancement in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And let's start by talking about the history of belt ranking generally in Jiu-Jitsu and beyond. In the late 1800s, Kodokan Judo, founded by Jigoro Kano, had a three-belt system, white, brown, and black. In 1952, Elio and Carlos Gracie developed a belt ranking system for those who wanted to instruct within their martial arts system. In that system, once a teacher got an instructor diploma, they also received a light blue belt, and that belt became a dark blue belt once somebody reached professor status. Currently, Royce Gracie does not wear a black, coral, or red belt, as we'll discuss later. He wears a dark blue belt, and that's in honor of his father. In the 1960s, Gracie's introduced black belts to their system. There was a white field on that black belt if a person was primarily a competitor, and a red field on that belt if a practitioner was an instructor. In 1967, further development of the belt system from the Jiu-Jitsu Federation of Guanabara took place in the attempted organization and legitimization of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu across Brazil. The famous picture of Elio Gracie standing in front of a red flag is the flag of the Jiu-Jitsu Federation of Guanabara. Let's look at a kid's belt rank order. Kids start with a white belt that has a black field on one side. They'll get 1, 2, 3, and then 4 stripes on that black field before, in our system, the Pedro Sauer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Association system, they will receive a yellow field on the other side of the same belt. On that yellow field, they'll receive 1, 2, 3, and then 4 stripes before they move on to their first belt color change, which is a full yellow belt. That yellow belt has a black field as well, and the process kind of repeats. There will be 4 stripes on the end of their yellow belt on the black field. Then they'll receive the field, the color of the next belt advancement, which is orange, and then 4 stripes, and then an orange belt. 4 stripes, and then a field, the color of the next belt, which is green, and then 4 stripes, and then their green belt. A student will receive 4 stripes on their green belt before they receive the first adult color belt, which is a blue belt. Anywhere along this process, a student who is a child may turn 16, and at that point they'll be reevaluated. So if you have an orange belt who turns 16 because they started when they were 12 or 13, that student will be evaluated now as an adult and may receive a white belt with 3 stripes, or they may be ready for a blue belt that depends on their skill level. Let's look at adult belt rank order. Here's a depiction of the colors of the belts for adults: white, blue, purple, brown, and finally black. Adult belts also have a field on one side, and adults also receive 1, 2, 3, and then 4 stripes before their belt color changes. And you can see on the left side of this depiction of the belts something that mentions time. This illustration talks about 20 hours per stripe at white belt, and then about 100 hours per stripe and belt change after that all the way through black belt, resulting in about 1,600 hours of training time for a black belt. Minimum technical training time is only one piece of eligibility. Other requirements include proficiency of technique, recent attendance, meaning if there has been a gap in a student's attendance, they will probably need to attend for a while again before any advancement would take place. Good citizenship, which is a display of character around the school, possibly helping others, helping the instructor, etc. And lastly, application of technique while sparring. So against a resisting opponent, how does this practitioner do with the techniques that they do know? If you're curious, rank advancement beyond black belt works like this. When you receive your black belt, it will have either a white field if you are competition-focused or a red field if teaching. Stripes on a black belt work like this. The first, second, and third stripes on a black belt take 3 years each to receive, so it is strictly time-based once you are a black belt. The title of professor is awarded to any black belt who has 3 stripes, so if their students call them coach until this point, they might call them professor afterwards. After a person has received 3 stripes on their black belt, they have been training with a black belt for 9 years. The 4th, 5th, and 6th stripes on a black belt take 5 years each, which means that a practitioner who has 6 stripes on their belt has been training as a black belt since they received their black belt for 24 years. When a black belt receives their 7th stripe, the belt color changes. The coral belt is a black and red striped belt, which represents the colors of the coral snake, not the color coral. And a black belt with 7 stripes or 8 stripes on a coral belt is referred to as master, for example, Master Pedro Sauer. A black belt with 8 stripes on their coral belt has been practicing since the time they received their black belt for 38 years. Now, some people are awarding a different color belt on the 8th stripe of a black belt, and that is a candy cane belt. An example of this is Marcio Stambowski, who is an 8th degree candy cane belt in Norwalk, Connecticut. At 9th stripe, the belt becomes a red belt, and the title becomes Grand Master. A 9th stripe after an 8th stripe takes 10 years. A 10th stripe, in theory, after a 9th stripe takes 15 years, which means 63 years training since the awarding of a black belt. However, there are fewer than 50 red belts, and they are all listed online. Their names and their backgrounds are all listed online. You can look them up. The 10th degree red belt has only been worn by the founders of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Carlos, Osvaldo, George, Gaston, and Elio Gracie. As you can see, a person's journey in jiu-jitsu and advancement in rank can last an entire lifetime easily. As compared with other martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu has a time requirement much greater to receive a black belt and the higher rank advancements. As you can see, karate is around 4 to 5 years of consistent training to receive a black belt. Aikido, 4 to 5 years. Judo, 3 to 6 years. Taekwondo, 3 to 5 years. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu, 10 to 12 years. Personally, I took 19 years, but that was 12 years of consistent training, and there were 7 years when I was essentially traveling too much to train. My best advice about rank advancement is this. Come to class to learn and practice because you love it. Don't talk about or overly obsess about your rank. Just let advancement come as the result of the improvement that you will see when you practice steadily. With that said, see you on the mat.